I started working the night shift at a 24-hour call center for a taxi service, thinking it'd be an easy job to juggle with my daytime classes. The office was located in a quiet, mostly abandoned business park, which at night felt more like a scene from a horror movie than a place of employment. I was usually the only person in the office from midnight until the early morning hours. The calls were mundane, mostly people needing rides home from bars or late-night shifts. That was until one night, a call came in that sent chills down my spine. The voice on the other end was a whisper. "I need a ride, but they won't let me leave." I thought it was a prank at first, but the desperation in the caller's voice felt too real. I asked for their location, and the line went dead for a moment before they whispered an address. It was for the old industrial part of town, known for being deserted at night. I dispatched a car, trying to shake off the unease that had settled over me. Minutes later, the driver called, "There's no one here. Are you sure this is the right place?" Just as I was about to respond, the original caller dialed back, their voice now frantic. "They're coming. Please, hurry." Then, the sound of scuffling, a scream, and the call cut out. Panicked, I urged the driver to wait a bit longer. Maybe they had hidden at the sight of headlights, scared of whoever they claimed was after them. But nobody appeared. The driver left, and no more calls came from the number. I couldn't shake the incident, so I decided to look into it the next day. The address given was a rundown warehouse scheduled for demolition. Curiosity getting the better of me, I drove there after my classes. The place was as creepy as it sounded, a perfect setting for a horror film. As I approached the entrance, the ground squelched underfoot. The area had seen recent rain, making the ground muddy. That's when I noticed footprints, small ones, like a woman or child had run through here recently. They led to a partially open door. Inside, it was silent except for the dripping of water. My heart was racing. Every shadow seemed to move, but I pushed forward. Then, I saw it. A phone, lying on the ground near a pile of old, discarded furniture. It looked like someone had tried to hide there. The screen was cracked, but it was still on, displaying a number. The call centers. I reported what I had found to the police, but they never found anyone. They said the phone was stolen weeks before from a nearby area. They theorized it might have been someone in trouble, or just kids messing around, but nothing came of it. I still work the night shift, but I'm not alone anymore. They hired a security guard, and we installed more lights outside the building. But every call that comes in late at night, I can't help but listen a little closer, wonder a little more, about who is on the other end, and if they're truly safe. That call changed me. Now, the night feels full of shadows, and every shift is a reminder that not every story has an ending. Some just linger, like whispers in the dark. My first job out of high school was the graveyard shift at a diner off a rarely traveled highway. It was the kind of place that seemed to belong to another era, with a jukebox in the corner that played hits from the 50s and 60s, and a neon sign that buzzed and flickered in the night. It attracted all sorts: truckers looking to refuel on coffee, insomniacs, and occasionally, people who seemed like they had nowhere else to go. One particularly quiet night, a storm brewing outside, a man walked in just past 2 a.m. He was soaked, rain dripping off him like he'd walked straight out of a noir film. He sat at the counter, ordered black coffee, and didn't say much else. There was something about him, a kind of heaviness that made the air feel denser. Hours ticked by and he just sat there, staring into his coffee like it held answers. I tried making small talk, but he only nodded or shook his head. Right before my shift ended, as dawn was just a hint on the horizon, he finally spoke. "Ever feel like you're waiting for something that's never gonna come?" he asked, his voice rough, like it wasn't used to speaking. I didn't know how to answer. I was 18, and everything felt possible then. Before I could find the words, he stood, leaving a crumpled $20 on the counter, and walked out into the breaking day. I found out later that day from a cop, that they'd found a car abandoned on the side of the highway, not far from the diner. Inside was a note, a goodbye of sorts. They were still looking for the driver, a man who had been missing for days. The description matched my mysterious customer. I never saw him again, and nobody else seemed to recall him coming in that night. Sometimes, I wonder if he was a ghost, caught in a loop, reliving his last hours over and over. Or maybe I was just a witness to his final moments of contemplation before he decided to disappear on his own terms. The diner and those early morning shifts never felt the same after that. It was as if, in his brief presence, he'd left a shadow that no morning light could dispel. I took a night shift job at a 24-hour grocery store in college, thinking it would be easy to study between stocking shelves and the occasional customer. The store was on the outskirts of town, and after midnight, it would often be just me and the night manager until the early morning. One night, a woman came through the doors close to 3 a.m., pushing an empty cart. She wandered the aisles, picking things up, examining them, then putting them back. It was odd behavior, but not alarming. Maybe she was just indecisive. As the night dragged on, she kept shopping, her cart still empty. Whenever I offered help, she smiled and declined, continuing her aimless wandering. It was unsettling how she moved through the store, silent as a ghost. Finally, she approached the checkout, placing a single item on the belt. A birthday candle, the kind you put on a cake for a wish. She paid with a handful of change, her hands trembling. "Is it someone's birthday?" I asked, trying to make conversation, to maybe understand her strange behavior. She looked up at me, eyes welling with tears, and whispered, "It was supposed to be." She left without another word, leaving the candle behind. I found out the next day that a local family had been in a devastating car accident a week prior, on their way home from a birthday party. A mother and her young son didn't make it. The woman matched the description of the surviving member, the father's wife. The store's security cameras, however, showed me talking and smiling to thin air at the checkout. The candle? It was never found. Those night shifts never felt lonely after that. Instead, they felt full of unseen presences, each with their own stories, silently walking the aisles.